We'll call it to order. Our invocation tonight will be presented by Pastor Rita Richardson. She's the pastor of Central Christian Church and president of the Russell Area Ministerial Association. We'll follow that with our pledge to our flag, so if you would, please rise.
Grant them the ability to work together in a peaceable manner as they consider the needs of the city and its residents. Help them to always be mindful of the needs and the welfare of their constituents. And Lord, we ask that you give our city leaders wisdom as they consider the various items on the agenda tonight. May all who come before this body be treated fairly and with respect. It's in your most blessed name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and be seated, please.
Mr. Ruth? Yes. Mr. Strait?
Here.
Mr. Sim?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Wiley?
Here.
Mr. Tripp?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Westcott?
Here. All right, we have a quorum. Council, in your package, you received the minutes from our most recent meetings. If there are no corrections or comments, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion. Second.
All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Finance report. Mr. McCoyne is out this week on vacation. I know it caused a little confusion. People emailing him this week got an auto reply from last year that he hadn't corrected. He's fine. Pretty much, a little issue has come up at the end of the week. It's not health related or anything. Jerry's fine, and will happily be back with us next month. So, Connie Holstein will do the finance report this month.
General fund revenues for May was $1,046,460,083 for May. That was 7.18% above projections. Tax receipt was $551,693. Franchise fees and permits were $38,626. Expenditures were $1,122,976. That was 8.99% above year-to-date projections. $42,420 year-to-date has been receipted than expended. Operations revenues for the street department was $238,244, 23% below year-to-date projections. Sales tax receipts was $611,891. 1/2 cent road tax was $53,793. The expenditures were $109,960, 10.41% below year-to-date projections. Sales tax improvement was $245,093 for overlay and drainage. Capital was $12,631. Economic development revenues were $50,392, $48,258 new sales tax, and $2,134 for interest. Expenditures were $9,241 for Arkansas Valley Alliance and Weir Road. The three economic development funds that we have, the first one Fund 03, there's $1,463,086 in that one. Fund 23, which is the second one, is $1,500,573. Fund 26, which is the third one, there's $417,979 as of May the 31st. Capital asset revenues, $112,644 for May, $112,200 for the new sales tax, and $642 for interest. Expenditures were $137,225 for City Corp, Building R&M, Fire Station, and Parks and Rec. Any questions? Thank you.
No questions? Thank you, Ms. Holstein. Council, this thought has run through my mind before, and I don't remember if back in the 30s when I started chairing the meetings, if I changed this, if we had done it in the past. I know we have not been doing it, but if in all of your boards and commissions and other activities that you serve on, I know you've seen it. Typically, the financial report should be accepted by motion. I'd like to see us start doing that from this point forward. With that said, we have a motion from Mr. Westcott.
Second.
Second from Mr. Tripp to accept the financial report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. For Mayor's report, this has been a slot that's been open for quite a while on our Civil Service Commission. Last week, or last month at the meeting, I made mention that I would like to nominate a person to fill that slot. Mr. Ramsey is at the back of the room. Would you stand up, please? He certainly looks like a first responder. He's got the build and the haircut for it. So, with your permission, I'm going to nominate Jason Ramsey to fill a slot on the Civil Service Commission.
Motion. Second.
So, motion was Mr. Wiley, second Mr. Tripp. Any discussion? All in favor of Mr. Ramsey being placed on the Civil Service Commission, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Ramsey. I'm sure that you'll get an armful of paperwork pretty soon. Thank you for your willingness to serve. The rest of it could be a little time-consuming, so I'm going to cede the rest of my report to Mr. Mallett from City Corporation. He's got some important work for us to consider.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity again to speak to you folks. We at City Corporation, as everybody in the city, appreciate the work y'all do for the city, and we continue to appreciate your support of City Corporation. We've had a good partnership, and I'll get to that at the end because we've approved the extension of our lease by 1 year, and that'll be what I ask you to do at the end of my report. And I've got about 10 slides, so I won't take very much of your time, but we'll slip through those pretty quick. Some of the things that we've accomplished in the last budget year, many of you are aware that we developed a leak in the Huckleberry Creek Reservoir Dam last October. Got a little hectic there for a while, but we were able to get that repaired for around $400,000, which we consider to be somewhat of a blessing. It was unbudgeted, but we were able to absorb that into our operating and capital budgets. But the important part is that the dam is secure and it's safe, and we've got the lake level back up to within 3 feet of full. And going into summer, obviously, that's a great place to be. As long as we're somewhere near full at the beginning of summer, that's a win for us. So everything's good as far as the Huckleberry Reservoir goes. We had a vacancy come up on our board. We appointed Max Mathis to the vacancy, and Jimmy Street was appointed by you folks. Both of these were nominated and approved by you folks to join our City Corporation Board of Directors. So both of those gentlemen were added to the board over the last year. We had a very positive finish to the 2017-18 budget. We were approximately $1 million better than budgeted due to mostly a decrease in expenses. About $650,000 of that was a decrease in expenses. Some of the things didn't came in less than budget. Some of the things we decided to find different ways to do, and we're always looking for ways to be more productive and more effective. We had income increases, revenue increases of about, I think it was around $300,000 over and above what we budgeted. We have 1 month left in our fiscal year, so that's what we're projecting to be right at $1 million better than budgeted. That will go into our reserve funds, and that will go into our capital funds for projects to be coming up that I'll talk about here in just a minute. And then we completed phase one of our capital improvements, or we're in the process of completing that. We're not totally finished. That was funded by a $49 million bond issuance in 2015, which you folks were obviously responsible for helping issue. We did pay off $8 million of existing debt, and the other $40.5 million was allocated for water and wastewater projects. Of that $40.5 million, 20 was dedicated to water improvements. I'm not going to go through all those, but that's a list of all the ones. You'll notice that 6 of those are complete, 1 is nearing completion, and the other 4 are either under construction or about ready to bid. So we had a 3-year time frame where we were trying to get all these projects complete. We weren't quite able to do that, but we had a mandate to get 85% of the funding encumbered within 3 years, and we have more than met that obligation. And then there's a $20.5 million dedicated to wastewater improvements, and we have 7 of those complete, 1 nearing completion, and the other 3 are ready to bid or in design. Same story there. We were able to expend and encumber more than 85% in the 3-year time frame. So we met all of our requirements and mandates for the last bond issuance. So as we talked about 3 years ago, there is a second proposed bond issuance of $25 million in August of this year, which is a month away. It will fund phase 2 of the water and wastewater improvements as we presented in the capital improvement plan in 2015. They've been shuffled just a little bit. One project may have been moved up for another one that was moved back, but for all practical intents and purposes, it's the same plan that was presented in 2015. The good news is it was projected in the rate plan that you folks also approved in 2015 to cover the bond issuances, and there are no increases proposed. And in fact, we're very comfortable in exceeding our debt coverage ratio, which means we have to have so much money over and above our operating budget to cover the debt. And we have a ratio of 1.10, and I think we're projected at 1.45. So again, we have a good level of comfort there that we're in no danger. These are the projects that I spoke of. The water is going to be a relatively small portion of the $25 million. It's going to be somewhere around $5 million. There's a handful of projects there that were not completed, and we're put in the phase 2 of projects, and the projects for the wastewater phase 2 is a little more extensive, $20 million. And these projects will finish out the mandate we have from EPA and ADQ to repair our collection system and eliminate overflows. The deadline for that is 2022, so that'll give us a couple years of hopefully, if everything goes as planned, we'll have a couple years leeway, a little bit of buffer there between getting all those repairs made. And again, that's a list of the projects that remain on the capital improvement project listing that was presented 3 years ago. So again, total at the bottom, $20.3 million. The total for the water was about 4.5, so that comes up right at $4.5 million, or $25 million. I know you can't see that, so I'm going to pass these out. I'm going to hand them to Mr. Sims and ask that he pass them down when I'm through here. But this is a calendar of events for the debt issuance that I spoke of a while ago in August of this year. There's the dates that we have to hit. The city comes in right around July 19th as far as having a meeting at the next council meeting. There will be a bond ordinance, just as there was 3 years ago when we did that. But there's some other items on here that the mayor's aware of that we'll have to work with you folks to meet and able to get in order to get the closing of the issue and transfer of money on August the 30th. So that is the end date, is August 30th, and there's a list of the things that we have to do. And again, the city's involved in a couple of those, and we've met with the mayor, and I know mayor's been in contact with the bond agents as far as meeting those deadlines. The only items that aren't included, well, not the only, but the main items that I wanted to mention is there will be some other wastewater plant improvements, basically an expansion for growth. It's time to look at that. Don't have, kind of like with all these projects, we don't really have an idea what that number is. We just know that there's a project coming down the road. It's going to be in the several $1 million. It'll be a medium-sized project for our plant, probably in the $10 to $15 million range as compared to some of the other projects we've had. Future secondary regional water source, again, that's not identified, and there's no cost or amount set aside for that, but we know that that's something that's going to take place at some point in the relatively near future. And then phase 3 water line replacements, that has been identified in our master plan, and we have about $40 million worth of water line improvements that need to be made at some point in time. We're not mandated to make those. That's just old line that has been identified. that needs to be replaced in the next, we'd love to do it in the next 10 years, but we're not under any mandate. It's just something we need to work in over time and try to get that done in the next 15 to 20 years, I would say. This is where I was thinking we would probably look to be funding those projects, existing and future capital reserves. We've got a pretty good reserve capital as we speak, and that's primarily for the wastewater plant improvements. I know that's going to be a big project. I'd like to be able to fund some of that with existing capital and future capital. Debt issuance of $6 million is projected. The plan that was presented in 2015 showed a $49 million bond issuance that we did in 2015. It shows this $25 million, and it also shows the last and third issuance of $6 million in 2020 that we may or may not need, depending on the projects that we have identified. But that is out there, and that is included in the rate plan. So should we need to issue that debt, we have a rate plan that is projected to cover that. If we have any a surplus bond money from this round, if we have some projects that came in cheaper, obviously we would utilize that money to work on primarily probably the top item there. Possible sales tax extension. We currently get, I believe, 12.5% of the sales tax revenues. We're very appreciative of that. We're using that money to pay back the bond payments currently, but we could ask for more if we needed it to fund, again, primarily probably the top item there. So that's a possibility. I put possible because I'm not counting on anything. And rate fee increases if necessary. So that's always going to be our last option, is if we can't make it work with the other items there to fund our future projects, then we would have to come back to look at increases if necessary. And as general manager, I don't want to do that unless we absolutely positively have to. And you folks have worked so well with us to this point. I'm very confident that whatever we need to do, we'll be able to get done with a very minimal impact to our customers. So with that, just again want to thank you folks, as I did at the beginning of the talk. Thank you for all that you do for us at City Corporation, all the residents around City Corporation, around the city and the county. And as I mentioned, our board has unanimously approved the extension of our 5-year lease. For those who are relatively new, may not understand, we have a 5-year lease with the city to manage the water and wastewater systems. We lease all of the facilities and the equipment from the city and manage it on a 5-year lease. And every year the board and the city council considers extending it by 1 more year to kind of keep a rolling 5-year term on that. And so we have done that, and we would ask that the council consider extending it again for another year to put us back up to 5 years. So again, if there's any questions on any of that or anything else that I may not have covered, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Malley, if you may, I have a question that's related to City Corp and City, but not necessarily to the bond or anything else.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, and I'm catching you off guard with this question, I realize this, but how many residents have been moved off of septic in the last 12 months within the city? You know that number off the top
I
of
don't
your
know
head?
that number. I'm sure it's not very many.
Okay. Is there a long-range plan of evaluating that and trying to move the residents to city service?
We don't have a long-range plan. We don't have that included in any unfunded projects. Primarily, the vehicle for doing that in the past and history has shown that improvement districts have been developed, especially in Hilltop area. There's been several improvement districts where the residents in that area get together, form a district, assess taxes to themselves, to be able to pay for improvements along that line. Now, short of that, I don't know of any other places where we've done any large-scale conversion from septic tank to city sewer. We've looked at that. My first go-around with City Corporation, we looked at that, and I tried to identify what a project like that would cost. And at that time, it was $30–40 million to tie everybody on who wasn't tied on. It's probably just double that, I would say, now, because there's not very many of those folks that have converted over. There's been small pockets that have developed sewer improvement districts and have come on over, but most of those are probably still on septic tank.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, so back to the calendar of events. The big date for the council to figure, it's on our regular council meeting next month. Is that correct? Yes. 21st, 20th. So,
Can I ask something, a clarification?
Sure.
I think I know.
Ms. Harris?
At the Municipal League, I met one of the bonds people. He's read my name tag, and he informed me he'd be here next month to talk about the bonds. When we do the bonds, well, we're talking about 23 million or something. Does it or does it not have any impact on the citizens as far as the money? Everybody's always afraid of that money. That money is very well secured and bought up instantly, right?
Yes, we're fairly highly rated because of the health of our finances and the support we have from city. All those factors play into it. So we're very desirable bonds. They know in other words, we're good for our money. So they can get a pretty good rate, but we don't have to give away the bank as far as too good of a rate because our bonds are very secure. They're very highly rated. So there's, I can't think of a scenario in which that bonds would be compromised because the rate plan that was put in place more than covers our normal expenses plus the projected bond payments that we have. And again, we have to have 110% of that in operating revenues, and we have almost 145%. So we more than cover. We have plenty cushion. I actually went back to our rate consultant and suggested maybe that we get more money because our rate plan could afford it. But he said he would rather be conservative and cautious and have more of a buffer than get too close. He would rather stay where we're at. And we really, we could have used it for some of the other projects I mentioned, but we didn't need it. But I thought if the rates were desirable, we might consider doing that. But he suggested leaving it right where it was at because everybody's very comfortable and very secure that we're more than capable of meeting the debt obligation from those
And it
bonds.
really makes us more secure than insecure, right?
Correct. It takes care of issues that if we don't take care of now, as Fort Smith and some others have found, the feds will come in and force you to take care of them. They're looking at about a $500 million plan that was pretty much mandated to them because they weren't proactive and didn't go out and do the things that we're doing. And again, we appreciate the support of the council and the understanding of our customers because the rates have gone up, somewhat and consistently for the last 4 years, and I believe there's two more years of rate increases proposed. And then, but luckily we had low rates at the time. But I understand anytime a bill goes up, nobody likes that. But I hope everybody can look around, and even though we're tearing up a lot of the city, I hope everybody can realize that we're repairing the system and we're securing the growth of the city for quite some time.
Okay. I hope the people that's asked me those questions, I asked it correctly and they got the right answer, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Because I was thinking that it didn't put us at risk at all.
No,
I mean,
it-
some people think that put the city in debt for $23 million, and I'm going, no, that's not how it works.
No, it's secured by the rates that we get for water and sewer.
And
the
those bonds are so like that, aren't
yeah,
they?
they would not sell if it wasn't a secure
Okay.
offer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I believe Mr. Mallett is asking for an 1-year extension added onto the end of their 5-year lease. Would anybody
Motion.
second? Okay, we got a motion, Mr. Wiley, and a second, Mr. Westcott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. You have a 1-year extension, Mr. Mallett. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
We'll fire you next year.
All right.
All right, that'll bring us down to our department report for this month. This one should be pretty entertaining. Chief Sloan from the Russellville Fire Department.
We're glad to be here.
Glad to have you.
Yeah. We've got a lot of exciting things going on at the fire department, and y'all know that. We're going to touch on a few of these, so I don't keep you all night. Mr. Tripp's already promised me a list of questions. So far, for this past year, we've had 2,398 calls for service. That's an average of 7 per day, with an average response time of 4 minutes, 39 seconds. And Central Fire Station responded to 45% of those calls. And that's, again, your reasoning behind having that central station downtown. This is our most densely populated and our highest call volume is in this downtown area. Y'all know I like pictures. I'm just going to leave them up there a couple of seconds, and then I'll go to the next one. Pictures are a lot more exciting than I am. Training, we've had 21,305 hours of training. That's an average of 387 hours per firefighter. We have a lot of high-tech specialties that we have to stay on top of, a lot of continuing ed. That new classroom is really a help, as is the training tower. And there it is. That training tower is going to allow us to train in ways that we've never been able to do in all the 26 years that I've been here. So it's exciting. And not only is it more convenient to do some of the training that we regularly do, there's also aspects of it that we've never been able to do before. So this is an exciting class. We partnered up with Arkansas Tech. I say it's exciting. It's one of those classes that you train and you want to be ready and you hope never, ever, ever happens, which is the majority of things that we train on. It's called an active attack integrated response training. And really what we're doing is if we in Russellville, heaven forbid, ever have an active shooter situation like some of these school shootings, basically we want to be prepared. And one of the major issues that's come up in the past is the integration of all the different organizations that have to work together in that scenario. If you think back all the way back to Columbine, you had law enforcement going in trying to clear the building. You had a lot of victims down, and it was literally hours before first responders could go in and pull those victims out and provide medical care. We are trying to preempt that, not allow that to happen here. And so these classes, we've had 134 participants so far. We have actually 5 more classes planned. That's a total of 4 classes. 4 states have been represented so far, and 15 different organizations, everything from law enforcement, and that includes Arkansas Tech Public Safety, our Russellville Police Department, State Police, Game and Fish. We've had Pope County EMS, of course, fire departments, dispatch centers, every organization that has to work together in a scenario like this. And basically what it's going to allow us to do too is, we talked about that time period between first responders going in and law enforcement clearing the building. If you look at that picture, that is in red vests, those are medical first responders. That's usually made up of fire department and EMS. And in the blue vest behind, that's a law enforcement. There's a law enforcement officer in front and a law enforcement in back, and that's a rescue task force in the middle. So after law enforcement goes in and sort of creates a warm zone, they've pushed the active shooter away from that area where the victims are. They may not have totally cleared the building, but they've kind of created a warm zone. This rescue task force will be escorted in, and we can start medical care, and we can get those victims out, hopefully save lives. Another really cool thing, the National Fire Academy is an awesome resource up in Emmitsburg, Maryland. It is totally free. Even the travel expense is reimbursed by the government. In the 24 years prior to the last couple of years, we've had roughly 5 attendees to the National Fire Academy. This time period, we have 9 that are either have attended, registered to attend, or will attend at least one class, if not multiple classes. So that's really exciting. Public education, we've educated over 1,700 children and 700 adults on fire safety. That includes our daycares and elementary school presentations and the station visits. This is a busy time for us. We have a group of kids nearly every day. Fire prevention, we've done 21 licensed child care facility inspections, 58 commercial and industrial inspections, 435 company level inspections. That's our engine companies getting out and inspecting those commercial occupancies. And I'll take just a minute because I get a lot of questions, especially from business owners. Why are we doing this? Well, in the spring, Russia had a fire in a mall and 60 some odd people were killed, and the vast majority of them were kids. And they were in a mall in a theater on spring break. watching a movie, and a fire started. And the reason that they were killed, after the investigation was done, the fire protection system was turned off and the exits were blocked. Well, that is not, if that happens in Russellville, Arkansas, it's because we're not doing our jobs. We're getting those engine companies out there. We have a reasonable expectation. You have a reasonable expectation that if you send your kids to the movie theater here, that the exits aren't going to be blocked and the fire protection system is going to be working. So these guys are out there doing that, inspecting every commercial occupancy. We did roughly 40% last year, 60% this year, and next year we're gonna do 100% every year thereafter. Done 25 plan reviews. That's new construction. Another exciting thing that I really wanted to touch on is programs that we're moving and getting started for the future. The major one that we're going to do is called the Junior Firefighter Challenge. And I don't know if y'all have walked by our setup over here at Fall Fest the last 2 years. We have set up an obstacle course for the kids, and we've been judging interest and excitement, and we've just been run over by the kids both years. And so this year we have met with Superintendent Dr. Gocher. Our latest meeting was with Dr. Gocher and all of the PE teachers. And for this coming school year, we're taking our obstacle course into the schools in 3rd and 4th grade. We're going to allow each elementary school to run 80 students in each grade through our obstacle course, and it's a timed course. We'll be keeping those times, and in your top finishers at each elementary school will actually come down to Fall Fest. We're going to set up a big kind of a final challenge, and all those finalists from each elementary school will come in and compete against each other at Fall Fest. They've been doing this for about 19 years in Conway. It's been very, very successful. They do theirs at Toadsuck, and they have in the thousands of parents and grandparents and people coming to watch the finalists compete. And I've got a little video I'll show you real quick. It's short. This is at our Fall Fest.
Hit it hard, CK. Hit it. Hit it, Ash.
It's all task-oriented fire department activities.
He's good, Josh. Josh, he good. Not me. No. Hurry, go, go, go. Go, CK, hurry.
The kids have loved it, the parents have loved it. It's been a great success at Fall Fest, and we are so excited to get that program started in the school district for this coming year. Community CPR classes, there's been a lot of research. We spend a lot of money on our first responders. Another aspect that is often ignored is early recognition and early intervention in the community. So we've taken an initiative this year. We're going to start providing classes. We're going to try to do at least 4 a year. We have the station, the resource over here to do it. We're going to provide community CPR classes with the objective of getting as many people in the city of Russellville trained in CPR so that if something happens, they can recognize what's happening and they can start that intervention as they call 911 and get that emergency response activated. We're also looking at schools, getting in, making sure our teachers. We've again gone through Dr. Gocher and the schools and getting in with their nursing program to offer that to them too. So we're excited about that. And then the training center at the airport, that is a long-term goal that we've been working on, been working with Keith. He is in the process of getting final approval from the FAA. It's not something that we have a ton of money to pour into. We have a couple of Connex boxes that we had purchased in the past that we've been using for storage. We're going to use those and take that opportunity to get that training site started. We've never really had a true training site where we can actually have a little bit of live fire and flow water. we're going to really discourage our guys from having live fire over here at our new station and our training tower. So we really want some Connex boxes or something that they can do some live fire training. But that's going to be exciting. It's going to be a long-term project. And it's going to be up to the creativity of the firefighters. We're going to put it up to them to figure out how to do it with the lowest, for the lowest dollar amount. So we'll see what they can do, and they're pretty creative. Oops. All right. Central Fire Station open house and dedication, June 1st. We had a fantastic crowd. Very good turnout. We were excited. Mayor's office helped us get it set up. Julie helped us. If we had had less people, my feelings might have been hurt, but if we had had more, we might have been overwhelmed. So it was the perfect amount. We opened the doors and allowed people to walk through. We had firefighters strategically placed throughout the building to answer questions. Hopefully, everybody was impressed. All the feedback that I got was very, very positive. And of course, Chamber of Commerce, we did the ribbon cutting same time. That was, we dedicated Ladder 1, and that ceremony of pushing it back in the bay, and those guys literally did push that ladder back in the bay. That goes all the way back to the horse-drawn days when they would pull the wagon up in front of the station, they'd unhitch the horses, take those back to the back to give them a good washing and feed and hay, and the firefighters would have to push that wagon back into the station. So it was a really cool ceremony that goes way back. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about, community outreach. Y'all know we designed that in our, and I'm talking when I say we, citywide. What our goals were with that city building was to really figure out ways to integrate into the community, be a part of it. It's one of the exciting things about the placement of the building downtown, being part of that old downtown Russellville. These are just some of the things that so far in just a few months, couple of months, that we've been able to get actively involved with. Russ Vegas, we had the command post for the race there in the classroom. Officer Smith Captain Smith from PD set up several television. We had GPS, live GPS tracking. We had live feed from the downtown finish line. And all your emergency responder leaders were in that room just in case anything happened. The other thing, on Friday night, we had the fun run and the 5K both run through the station. And I've gotten a lot of, even from the school, I had an elementary teacher, 5th grade teacher, tell me that that's all he heard about when the kids came back was getting to run through the station. So that was really neat. We had the fire trucks set up on each side and the lights going, and it was just a fun thing. Leadership Russellville, we've hosted that in the classroom, and we did a tour and a lunch. Again, the Russ Vegas, after it was all over with, they asked if they could do their VIP luncheon or supper, VIP appreciation dinner, I guess, and they did that on the 3rd floor, and that was fun. It was raining that night a little bit, so they didn't get to use the outside area, but they seemed to have a good time, and it went good. We have already a principal in town, one of the elementary schools, that has reserved the classroom to do her in-service for teachers before the school year. We've got local businesses that have asked to use it as a special monthly meeting, not a regular monthly meeting, but to have a special meeting. And of course, we've already talked about the multi-agency training. As far as I know, in my 26 years, we've never had multi-agency training like what we talked about earlier with the integrated response. And a big part of that is having the resource to do it. That's all I have. I want to take just a minute, and he doesn't know anything about it. He's not supposed to, he may, but y'all have all seen that station, and you know that the building process was almost a 2-year ordeal. The details are unimaginable, you know, just every day. And we wisely chose Chief Sedian is our liaison with Van Horn Construction. And I'm going to tell you, it started out at the beginning of that process, we were all shaking hands and smiling and meeting once a week or once a month. About the middle of it, whenever Richard would come around, I noticed Van Horn kind of turning and walking the other way. And by the end of it, if Richard needed to get a hold of somebody at Van Horn, he'd come over and say, hey, can you call them? Because they won't answer my phone anymore. So y'all know he's tenacious. You've seen the station. I've been asked by several of you what I felt like was the difference in the construction of that building as some other projects that have gone on. And I'm going to tell you absolutely from, my opinion is the difference is that liaison. When you have somebody that is watching every detail, that is holding them accountable, he has the knowledge, the construction knowledge, the just general knowledge, and if he didn't have it, he was willing to stay up all night long so that he could gain enough knowledge to argue with him. Because I don't know if any of y'all have ever really noticed Richard does like to argue and discuss. So he put a lot of effort into that. If we didn't know the topic by the next day when we were having that meeting, we knew it. So I've got a little plaque that I want to present to him real quick while we have a captive audience here. Richard, you come on up.
That's not why he's got all that gray hair, is it?
Hey, Richard.
So y'all think I'm being long. You know Richard's going to want to speak.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
This plaque says, Distinguished Service Award presented to Richard Sedian in grateful appreciation for your significant contributions in the construction and design of the world-class Central Fire Station. The City of Russellville thanks you for your excellence, expertise, and outstanding service. Russellville Fire Department, dated June 1st, which was our dedication and ribbon cutting. Now, if y'all have any questions, you're going to have to, you got a list of questions here. Go ahead, Mark.
I only want to know if is that the reason you got your gray hair so quick?
Absolutely. I won't say anything with the exception of the greatest quality of a person, and this fire chief has it, is giving people the believing in people, working around him, empowering them to do what they're here to do. And when you've got pride in the city of Russellville, like we have now, and a leader like this, you can't help but do these type of things. So appreciate it.
So were you just teasing? Do you have any questions? Anybody have anything? Well, we want to thank you for your support. Obviously, we couldn't do it without it. The support of City Council, the mayor, and of course the citizens of Russellville. Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I will throw a comment out. They say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. This morning, Chief Sedian and I were on the phone with an architect from Little Rock. The mayor and fire chief of Paragould are coming over in a couple of weeks to learn how to build a fire station. So I think they've got a good example to follow. Y'all did a great job on that. Thank you very much. All right, that'll bring us to committee reports. Chairman Brown, does the Finance Committee have any work for us this month?
Yes, sir. First thing, go over what we met with on last Tuesday. I've got 13 items. Number one, appropriation, Department of Capital Parks sales tax. It's for Shiloh Park. It's a matching grant. It's for $190,000. I put that to the council's motion.
All right, council, you heard the committee's motion. there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item 1 is approved, Mr. Chair.
Number 2, Calvert Park sales tax, $5,000, design concept for the ADA playground slash bike park. We put that in form of motion to the council for approval.
Council, you heard the committee's motion. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Harris?
Do we have a contract with these people, or are we just doing it? I talked with Jerry about this, and he's
Yep.
not here tonight, but he had, you know, he thought a contract to know exactly what we were doing would be in place
Yep.
before we did this.
We'll have to assume they're writing one up. Typically, we'll let them send us theirs. Trey looks it over, but yeah, we need to do a contract before we do. Any other questions?
Could you say that this way? I didn't.
I'm sorry. We'll have a contract before we pay them anything on it. Typically, we have to have a contract, but generally, we'll let them draw up their standard contract, send it over, and Trey goes through it and makes it work for us. Any other questions? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Sound like 2 against, 5-4. Should we call the roll on that, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
No.
Mr. Straight?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Ms. Caruth?
No.
All right, item 2 is approved, Mr. Chairman.
Number 3, appropriation, Department of Economic Development. Number 2, an expense is for the Weir Road project, and it's at I-40 bore. Due to the fact the other one collapsed, it's for $82,798,000. Put that in form of motion to the council for approval.
Council, you heard the motion. Any discussion?
Yes, Mayor, I have a question for clarification first. It says economic development number 2. So is that the same fund that the utility work was done under?
Yep.
And my next question would be for Mr. Smith. If you think back to January or February of 2017, when we had a meeting downstairs, so I'll ask this same pertaining question. Mr. Smith, in your opinion, is this a permissible use for that fund?
My thoughts on it back then were that you needed to have some type of assured or intent or some type of commitment that was in writing from a developer, which I don't think we have had at that time and still don't. So I think without that, then it's questionable as to its legality based upon my understanding with talking to other attorneys that specialize in this field that have helped us with the sales tax.
So do you have a recommendation on this? You said questionable, but do you have a recommendation?
Well, I think that if you could find a different alternate funding source, then that would be preferable to this, just because of the, you don't have a direct linkage to economic development with this project, which was my reservations back then and still are now.
So do we have any other sources of income?
You could do economic development 3. It's pretty wide open.
I make a motion, we change it to Number 3. Yeah, but you have to have a motion to change it from 2 to 3.
I'll second that.
That would be an amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Remember, yeah.
Okay, so we got a motion to amend number 3 to take it out of Economic Development Fund 3, the current fund. So all in favor of the motion to amend, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so now we're back to the committee's motion for paying the $82,798 now out of Economic Development Fund 3. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 3 is approved as amended.
Okay, item 4, appropriation administration, maintenance supplies. Okay, that's replacing television in the council chambers. Everybody look on the wall, those are new TVs. And you can actually see yourself. I put that form of motion to the council for approval.
Council, you heard the committee.
$8,916.
Council, you heard the motion. Any discussion?
What happens if we say no?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I thought this,
I'd say it's a little bit like,
Well, but, I mean,
No, it's-
and that's somewhat comical joking, but somewhat serious. Are we acting in a habit of spending the money before it's actually been appropriated?
good question.
no, we've never done that.
And that's
I'm
not a
trying to
good practice.
remember, we just never do that. And I'm trying to remember if we had appropriated this before or, because it seems like this has come up 2 or 3
What did we
different
do last
times.
month, Mayor?
I'd have to go pull the minutes and see.
Well, let me add,
I know we approved doing it. I just don't know if we appropriated the money or not.
let me ask a question. Was this part of the thing that with us going off the air and stuff? Was it-
No, that was
That was different?
It
I was
was a
going to
separate-
say, we
yeah.
appropriated that money.
yes.
Okay.
And maybe, I just don't remember, frankly.
Okay. Mr.
But
Mayor,
it was that upgrade that made us realize that, you know, to be able to see from the back up to the front or vice versa.
item 5 on last month's minutes was an appropriation to replace the televisions, $8,970.
Okay, so we
We
have
did that
done
last
this,
month.
good.
Yeah.
All right, so we can kill number 4 then. Thank you, Mr. Westcott. Item, Mr. Chairman, you're down to item 5. Item
You say
4
we
was
already
already
vo-
approved.
We already voted that?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mr.
good.
Westcott
last-
found where we did that
last
in
month.
Okay.
May.
Number 5, appropriation, administration. This is rollover grant funds for the historic district, spent $2,278. Put that in form of motion to the council for approval.
Motion.
Okay, you heard the committee's motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 5 is approved.
6 and 7, the resolution to accept the contract with Bob Hegel, is that correct?
Yes.
For our downtown streetscape update, Mayor. The appropriation amount for $44,000 to come out of Economic Development 3 Fund.
All right,
I
your
put that in form of motion for approval.
motion on 6 and 7,
6 and 7, yes.
they go together. All right, council, you heard the motion that is on items 6 and the appropriation on number 7. Is there any discussion?
We do have a contract on that, is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That was at the finance meeting. You don't get to see that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6 and 7 are approved, Mr. Chair.
Number 8 and 9, it's a resolution to accept the bids for the re-roofing and the appropriation for the re-roof of the old Central Fire Station, $45,329. I put that in form of motion on both those.
Council, you heard the committee's motion. Any discussion?
Yes. Which fund is this coming out of?
Capital fund, I believe that's the R and M fund, isn't it?
Doesn't say, that's why I'm asking.
I thought that's what we'd said last time.
Well, it sort of says building R&M,
Yeah.
sort of says capital fund.
It says capital fund, and I believe that typically it's the R and M. Connie, have y'all talked about it?
It's a building fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can write in R and M on there, if that's all right with everybody. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 8 and 9 are approved.
Number 10, resolution for the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with Tyler Road Industrial Park for keeping the property in orderly condition. This is for the man offering his trade for the grass.
That's correct. He's offering to keep that property mowed. He's gonna cut it for hay, and in exchange for he'll take the hay.
I'll put that in form of motion to the council.
All right, council, you heard the motion. Discussion?
Yeah, is he gonna do all of that? I mean, that whole, what, 20 acres out there?
45.
45 acres? Good deal.
I mean, there's some that's pretty rough that you can't get to, but it'll basically he'll be able to do pretty much everything we have traditionally paid to have bush on it. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 10 is approved.
Number 11, consideration of resolution to join a class action suit to recover gross receipt taxes on hotels booked by online travel companies in the city of Russellville. They're doing this in Pine Bluff, isn't that right, Mayor?
That's correct, in Jefferson County.
I put that in form of motion to the council for approval.
Council, you heard the motion on item 11. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 11 is approved.
Item 12, discussion for getting RFQs for the Russellville Park Master Plan.
This one does not have any expense attached to it at this time. I know Terry has been working on getting an RFQ ready to send out, and last week at the Municipal League, a lot of the vendors down there are very interested in submitting their statement of qualifications for it.
So table it.
There's really no action on it
Yeah.
at this time. We just to keep everybody updated. At some point, we'll have a meeting. When we get those RFQs, we'll have a meeting and probably interview the favored respondents, and then they'll give us a price.
Can I ask another question? I'm just
Yes,
full of questions.
Go ahead.
I went by the booth that you had asked me to go by, and I picked up some brochures. Did you pick up any extra brochures that you could have brought back to show people some of the ideas? You didn't either?
No.
Actually, they gave me
Gave him,
some sample RFQs they've responded to in the past,
Yeah.
and they gave me a thumb drive. The thumb drive I thought would have those pictures that they were showing, but it was
But they
just
didn't?
no. It was
Well, I
just
have a packet, so I guess I'll dig in my bag and see what all they gave me.
I've got one on my desk, or I gave it to Terry, but it's pretty awesome.
no, I couldn't be over there, but you'll be
So
They gave
there's
me-
no action on item 12 at this time, Mr. Chair.
Just table it.
Yeah, we'll just leave it on there.
13, discussion in regard to using construction management for a roadway project in Inglewood Phase 3. Says this will not delay the project at this point and will provide oversight and all other components missing in the absence of current city engineer. By law, the project must exceed $2 million. This project meets the requirement, and the current consultant, Barrett and Associates, is in agreement with this concept and would like to see the city add it to its project. Mr. Tripp, do you have any comments?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Brown. I would like to make a motion to allow some discussion. My motion would be to send request for qualifications for CMGC services on the Inglewood Phase 2 project. The motion is to allow some discussion.
I would second that.
All right. So we got a motion and a second. Go ahead and we're ready to discuss, right?
Mr. Baird, I'm sure if you want to go ahead and come to the podium, you're going to get a question at some point in time or have a comment. The idea behind this is to integrate a contractor in the mix before it goes out to bid to better streamline the packet, the details of it, and hopefully streamline the time of the project and everything all the way around, correct?
Yes, sir. That's a good summary of it. There's a lot more detail in those descriptions, but that's a good summary description of it.
And everything still gets bidded out, open bid,
Yes, sir.
just underneath the umbrella of the GC or the CEM handles and coordinates it, everything and presents.
It'll be the same process that the contractors go through, because even the general contractor on a job doesn't perform all the work. He has some subcontractors. And it'll be similar to the process on some of the CMGC contracts that y'all had on the building construction, except this will be segregated into different biddable components that will allow for the construction and bidding by several subcontractors.
Thank you.
And this isn't a service, the CMGC isn't a service that we provide, but we're happy to work with whoever y'all select, and it'll be, it'll take some additional coordination, but we're happy to do that.
In your opinion, is this the right move for the city on this
Considering
project?
I think so. I think with the existing situation, the city will still have an inspector, but there's a lot of coordination that's going to have to take place with utilities that's typically handled by city staff, and just overall day-to-day management of the project, in addition to the inspection.
And this motion is just to send requests for qualifications.
Are you making that motion?
That was my motion that Mr.
Okay.
Wiley seconded.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to send out a request for qualifications for the CMGC on South Englewood. I think we've got a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Wiley, the motion was Mr. Tripp, the second was Mr. Wiley. Any other discussion?
Yes, sir. Since we're so far along in this thing, I have concerns, and, is it necessary to bring somebody on this late in this thing?
Does it cause you any heartburn, Mr. Barrett, to bring in to go to this method at this point?
He's doing the design work and everything for it already and almost done with it.
Yeah. If we got much further along, I'd say it would be a lot more work, but we haven't broke all the quantities out yet, and we're just at that point that we're going to start looking at all the quantities, and that's a good time if you're going to bring someone on, so we can start segregating it, because I can pull it out into the packages that I think it should be bid, but the general contractor may have a different idea. So now would be a good time. If it got much later, it would require more work on our part, but we're willing to do whatever we need to get it done.
So how much time do we have?
My schedule is going to be flexible. We'll work with however y'all want to get it done. We're not on, the overall project, I see this as being about a 12-month project going through the school year. And with Englewood and the proximity to Sequoia and the middle schools, traffic control is going to be an integral part of this project. And I think that's another aspect of bringing on a contractor to just get another opinion or hear some different ideas, as opposed to us putting together a plan and saying, you're going to do it this way. Because contractors always have another opinion. And that's why we work and seek out contractors' opinions, because we like putting together plans that are contractor friendly, because that turns into favorable pricing for the city.
Well, I drove down this street yesterday, I think, or this morning, and I didn't see anything happening, so when does it begin? I mean, as Larry said, you were far along in it. As far as
Oh, the design?
visually, I don't see anything going
Are
on.
you talking about the design or the construction?
I'm talking about the street itself.
Oh, there's no work
Yeah.
done yet, just, we've been working on the design for about the past 4 months.
Okay.
And then we added the other section, we also added the drainage project, Vancouver and Tulsa, that's actually getting ready to begin, I believe, next week. But the design is nearly complete, but there's been no construction begin yet. And there's been no bidding, and so this process would be, y'all selecting a CMGC, and then we would coordinate with the CMGC, develop bid packages, let them review the plans, and any comments or concerns we would incorporate into the final plans and get those bid packages ready to go to bid.
What's a minimum amount, fair time for the CMs for us to give the CMs to respond to this? Because they don't really have to do calculations, they just have to give us their qualifications.
Right.
And then we would select them.
It would be a
Is this a
qualification-based selection.
two-month deal?
No, sir. You know, you can fast track it and get the advertised for a couple weeks, and then depending on everyone's schedule, you know, I've done them the following week. Go through the qualifications and make a merit-based selection based on the submittals.
Okay. We may be leaning on you for some help on that.
Yeah.
If the council votes this way.
City Corp may be, I know they go through this process. Steve's not here, right?
He's
So
already
I
left.
volunteer Steve to sit in and help with that also.
Yeah, he got his money, he's got
Make him do some work. But yeah, we can assist with that, and I do think Steve would be beneficial, because it's gonna impact them also. He'd be a good one to help to assist with the selection.
Good.
Mr. Barrett, when you said something a second ago about a 12-month project, so we're pretty much talking about the entire upcoming school year?
Yes, sir.
More so.
That's on the long end, but that would be a discussion with the CMGC and put in a realistic time frame based on their analysis. Because it's a lengthy project that's gonna have to be done in sections just for accessibility for the public.
Because about a month or 2 months ago, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, we added the Seattle, because the initial of this project was going to end at the roundabout, and then we brought it eastward a few blocks to incorporate that drainage, which will have so we kind of amended that just in the last 30 or 60 days to expand the scope of the project.
Yeah, and it's gonna go east of the roundabout to the east side of Sequoia, capturing that Phoenix intersection. So it's a sizable project.
All right, any other discussion? So we've got a motion and a second to do an RFQ for CMGC on the South Inglewood. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Call that 6-1. I believe you have some business from tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we've got 6 additional items here. The first one is discussion regarding the interstate lighting. And we were looking at, one, just the exits. I believe what we voted to bring to the council to start with, but,
Okay, I believe the motion was for the $500,000 option to light.
yeah, I believe
the
it was
interstate.
just the exits there, and I put that to the council in form of motion.
All right. Council, you heard the motion. I think everybody was here earlier for the discussion. Is there more discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 1 from tonight is approved.
Item 2 was tabled. The grant writer. Item 3, discussion of adding a position for the police department for school resource officer funded by the Russellville School District. The chief came and explained that. The city will have to pay the officer and get reimbursed. This is pending approval by the school district. The board hasn't met yet. But I put that in form of motion to the council, pending approval by the school board.
Council, you heard the committee's motion. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 3 is approved.
4 is tabled.
Consideration for the city treasurer position has been tabled. All right, consideration for a pay range for Director of Public Works.
I believe we tabled that.
We've
one.
tabled that. Consideration from letter of intent for Dalton King Building. We'd had discussion on that, and I think Mr. Strait here had a good presentation in reference to this, and I put that in form of motion for approval to the council.
All right, council, you heard the motion. I think everybody heard the discussion, but I think it would be in order for, Mr. Strait, Ms. Harris, you think so?
Public, yes, let the
Why
public
don't you go ahead and
know.
tell us what we're looking at here, Mr. Strait? This is pretty impactful for the city of Russellville, so.
Well, as I stated earlier, we have an employer looking for a job site, Cypress Valley. Who's a very, very good employer. He pays his employees well. He sets up profit-sharing plans for them. And he also does a lot of things with Heifer International. As a matter of fact, Heifer International, and when they get the business started, will train some of its staff to take to foreign countries to train them in meat processing. Anyway, we have entered into a letter of intent as they needed to know something by this Friday as we were competing with a competing sister city. And basically, the parameters of the letter of intent is that we would enter into a 10-year commercial lease with Cypress Valley. The first 3 years would be $1 per year in consideration that they're going to eventually employ 100 employees, and that they're going to install in this business during the first year approximately $4,000 worth of new equipment. And of course, they're going to have to spend more money refurbishing the inside. Year 4, they start paying lease payments at the rate of $5,000 per month. The 5th year, at the rate of $7,500 a month. And then years 6 through 10, they pay $10,000 a month, subject to a 2% escalation clause every year. And also, if they fall short of 100 employees, they have to pay an additional $1,200 per lacking employee. In other words, if they lack 10 employees, that's $12,000. In other words, their lease payment would be $11,000 a month base instead of the 10. This will be a triple net lease. In other words, they will pay all expenses, maintenance, repairs. During this 10-year lease, they will have an option to purchase this for $1.75 million. And they'll be given credit for all rents paid after the first 5 years. And what's important to me is they're going to immediately start their due diligence. In other words, they're going to want to do a property inspection and also a feasibility study, but they will get to work on that right away. And that will accommodate us entering into a final full-fledged commercial lease. They're getting their financing through AEDC. AEDC is very impressed with these people. And of course, Alliance has agreed by this contract to work with AEDC in Cypress Valley to make sure they get all the economic incentives they can down there. Anyway, I think this is a great opportunity for the city. We don't get an opportunity at 100 jobs. And also, as stated earlier, Heifer International wants to integrate themselves into our community, do some projects with tech, and so I'm excited about that. Now, this is a letter of intent. I mean, this is not a legally binding agreement, but to me, this is a lot better than just presenting them with a proposal like they asked for. They have signed this letter of intent, and with the integrity of this particular company, I do think that this project will go through. And so congratulations, City of Russellville.
All right. Mr. Smith, how would you like to phrase this motion? The motion from the committee is to accept the letter of intent. Is there some more that needs to go with it, or are you happy with just that?
That's fine.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That item is approved, Mr. Chair.
That's the end of the Finance Committee report.
All right then, Personnel Committee, Chair Freddie Harris. Got anything to report tonight?
No, sir, but I will have something within the next week or so.
Thank you, ma'am.
How about item 1 and 2? Is that not yours?
What item one and two?
Right here. Item 1 and 2.
Oh, I don't have a program here.
I think we've already approved both of those.
We already approved those?
Whatever this is, we'll bring it back after our next meeting, if that's okay.
Okay.
Nothing urgent. We already have the job description for the Public Works Director,
Well, and
right? I mean, that's
and-
pretty clear.
And the custodian.
And the custodians.
Yeah,
Really,
he's already working.
really, those are done.
We've already done these.
He's already working.
All right, that'll bring us to old business. Consideration of an ordinance restructuring fees for Oakland Cemetery. We've had 2 readings on that.
Motion to dispense with the reading requirement, read by title only with a short explanation.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion to suspend the reading requirement. This is for the 3rd reading. All in favor of the motion to suspend, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right. Motion to suspend, I believe, is approved. Mr. Smith?
An ordinance amending ordinance number 2139 to apply different purchase prices for grave lots in the Memorial Gardens edition of Oakland Cemetery and for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would amend ordinance number 2139, section 2, regarding the revenue and accounts section of that ordinance, and would establish a new fee system for the new addition called Memorial Gardens in Russellville Oakland Cemetery.
Mayor, I would like for the director to come to the podium, to the mic.
I think we would need a motion if they were
Oh,
going
you do?
We need a
Motion to adopt.
discussion.
You need a motion to adopt first? Okay.
Motion to adopt.
We have a motion to adopt from Mr. Westcott. We have a second from Ms. Caruth.
Now I'd like.
Now discussion. Mr. Wiley, we'll give you the floor. You have some questions for
Yeah.
the director.
I do. Do you and your committee agree with this, what we're fixing to vote on tonight?
I can only speak on behalf of the Cemetery Commission. They do not agree with this.
They what?
They do not agree with this.
What part do they not agree with?
They do not agree with the fee structure as it's proposed to be changed. They've actually requested more information be brought to the city council, which I believe it has been. They have voted to and have requested that the fee structure remain at a total price point excluding the deed fee and the $7 state fee, to remain at $750. But your breakdown would be that of $350 per grave space. This is a traditional grave space, with a $400 of that of the remaining portion applied to a maintenance or perpetual care fee. Their other item was in regard to cremation spaces and spaces for children, small children, to remain that of $550, with your breakdown there being $175 as your price point for that grave space, $375 towards your maintenance perpetual care.
All the questions I got.
Okay.
Okay, so let me see if I follow this. they're not objecting to splitting the cost out, which has been one of the things.
Correct.
They want the cost per site for graves to be $750, and they're saying make it $350 for the ground, and the rest is perpetual care. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct? Okay. I'm sorry, council. I just had to keep that straight in my mind.
So what do we need to change on the lease agreement?
Well, before we change anything, I'd like to make some comments, if I may.
Mr. Westcott, you have the floor.
Yeah, keep in mind, we're strictly talking about the undeveloped portion of the cemetery, which to my calculations, the last time I checked, was about 452 spaces for traditional graves. Under the current fee structure, the total income of those 452 graves, if they're all sold in that traditional size plot, will be $275,720, and that reflects a loss to the state for which you as a taxpayer will receive zero benefit, a loss to the state of $67,800. This new structure equals a total income of over $435,000 and reflects a loss to the state of Arkansas, $4,520. If those same traditional graves are put into cemetery-sized plots under the current structure, the loss to the state will be $99,400. Under this new structure, the loss to the state will be $4,520. Now keep in mind, with the average rate of sales over the last 11 years, we've got 30 years worth of plots available for sale in the existing portion of the cemetery. So it's 30 years before any of this becomes necessary. What we're doing here today, or what we have the ability to do here today, is to adjust these fees thinking forward 30 years. We don't have to do anything now in the current portion of the cemetery. We can continue to do everything like we've currently done. We've not changed the prices of a cemetery plot since 2014. I'm not suggesting that we do that on the existing portion of the cemetery. With your passing of this measure tonight, if you do this, we reduce the loss of taxpayer funds by a substantial amount. And we help ensure that our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren 30 years from now continue to have enough money to properly maintain the Oakland Cemetery. That's all this is about, is preparing for 30 years from now, where the total package price right now is $750. The total package price 30 years from now will be $1,000. Even at $1,000 today, we're well within the scope of what similar cemeteries around the state of Arkansas charge for what we offer here. Cemeteries of a similar level of excellence. Right now today, this $1,000 is well within that balance. But we're not deciding this for today. We're deciding this for 30 years from now.
Okay, I got something to say about that. You say that if we pass this, we don't lose no money, and we're going to charge the same price for the old plots as we are charging now. So how are we going to lose money?
Just on the undeveloped portion of the cemetery. That's
No,
all
I'm
that
not
we're
ta- I'm
discussing
not-
here tonight. This fee restructure has nothing to do with the current developed portion of the cemetery.
Okay, so how are we going to lose money?
Because 20% of what you sell that land for goes to the state of Arkansas. And we, as the city of Russellville, receive no benefit for that.
The old part.
Any
The old-
part, any
okay.
part.
All right.
Now, we're not able to change the current fee structure of the current developed portion, but we do have the ability right now to change the way we structure the fees for the undeveloped portion. Now, under your proposal, we will lose, or we will pay, I say lose because we don't get any benefit for that. We're going to lose $31,640. I'm just saying we don't need to do that. We're making decisions right now that will affect us 25 or 30 years from now if we continue to average 9 sales a year of a cemetery plot. Some years more, some less, but it averages about 9 sales a year. We've got 30 years to go. So let's make plans right now so that years from now, we're prepared to maintain the cemetery. That's all I'm saying.
Mayor, may I have a comment on this?
Mr. Tripp?
One question I think Mr. Westcott answered of mine was the last time the fee was raised, it was 2014. There's no good way to ask this, but what is the competition's price? I mean, I don't like to phrase it that way, but I mean, what are
But
the
that's
competing?
essentially what it is. When you remove the human element, it is business. And in this business, our competition varies. One particular cemetery, their lowest is $1,200 per space. Mind you, that includes your vault. We do not sell vaults. The lowest that I have seen is $20. It is a country cemetery. No one maintains it. So that's how varied it is, but within the average of our size and I'll say our caliber, we are sitting right about in the average spot, excluding the fact that we do not offer the vault that we do require for our burials.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any
I've
other
got a
questions?
question.
Mr. Sims?
You know, in other parts of the country, when we've had natural disasters, the burden fell on someone to restore the damaged cemeteries. Is the state responsible for that under our current guidelines? Who is responsible
No.
for that?
No.
No, we are.
I believe that we are.
Of the 20% of, for the price of the land itself, of that, or for that 20%, the only way that the Oakland Cemetery would benefit from all the money that we have paid and will pay from here on out is if the city of Russellville ceases to exist as a city. Then the
Well-
state can come in and take care of it. But that's
Under
the
the
only way that that
scenario
money is
of
usable.
Joplin, Missouri, God forbid that ever happened, but under that scenario, who takes care of that?
Well, Mr. Sims, I believe we would need to defer to the state board to get that answer for you.
Well, that's been my concern all along, is what the state thinks of this fee thing and whether they were supportive of it. And I personally want our commissions to understand that we're here to support them.
Yes,
That's all I have to say.
thank you.
This 20% that Mr. Westcott is referring to basically is ensuring that the city of Russellville continues to do our responsibility to care for the graves. So the only way, that's where the comment comes from, unless we default, absolutely quit taking care of it, well, this fee stays with the state in
Does the
perpetuity,
city,
I guess.
I guess I do have another question. So does the city council have the authority in the future to say, why are we in the cemetery business? We don't want to be there anymore, and stop doing that?
Then the state takes over.
Well, the point of this is,
No,
instead of
I
giving the money
understand the
to
point
someone
of
else,
that.
this
The
same
question
20%
is-
stays with us. It
the
stays in
question-
the cemetery commission.
Mr. Westcott, the question is, does the city council in the future have the ability to cease operating a cemetery in the city of Russellville?
No.
Mr. Smith?
I think we're stuck with that. We've looked at that a few years back, and, I mean, we could cease if somebody would take over operations. But back a few years ago, nobody was interested in taking over operations to the cemetery. I think it's our cemetery until we sell it to somebody that would take it over and privatize it.
And there's not too many people in the market for a cemetery.
Mayor, do we, I can't remember the number, but I think this is correct. We appropriate some money each year to the cemetery?
Yes.
$40,000. Does that go to the maintenance and care of?
Mowing,
basically.
So
general
any
maintenance.
monies collected by the city comes to the general fund per se, and then it's turned around and appropriated back through the budget process for the purpose of maintaining care of the cemetery.
Yeah.
Connie's shaking her head.
So in addition to that, we appropriate $40,000 a year to offset the deficit, basically.
Correct.
Okay, I got another question for the director. If we pass this tonight and we start saving some money and it goes towards the cemetery committee, is that going to help you as far as running the cemetery and keeping it up to date?
With the budget that we currently have, it does help keep us maintained. Our cemetery is, our board is striving to get Oakland on the historical registries. We have historical significance, but we have to prove it. There are some things that need to be restored in our cemetery in order to fill the requirements. Once established with the Historical Society, we are eligible for grant money, which would ease the burden of the city to take care of the cemetery.
Well, years ago, when I was on the cemetery committee, we had in the old part of the cemetery, we had a bunch of broken tombstones.
Yes, sir.
And it cost us a lot of money to repair those.
I don't recall the number off the top of my head, but I believe it was under $10,000 that we spent.
Yeah, it was expensive.
It is expensive, yes. It is the historical part of the cemetery. Dr. Russell is at rest there.
Yes.
Along with many others of the founders of this town. And I could take you on a history tour for a couple hours. But yes, we have a project where we did repair a few of the stones to evaluate how much that would cost. It is a project that we're looking into to maybe our public can adopt a founding family or someone out there to help us with the repairs that we need to make in order to get us in line for the historical registry, in order to make us eligible for grant monies.
Okay, in your opinion, is this ordinance tonight or resolution, is it in the best interest of the cemetery?
Sir, my personal opinion is irrelevant. It's the opinion of my board, and they have delivered those numbers, and that's all I can speak on.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, we've got a motion and a second. You want to call the roll? This is third reading.
Mr. Brown?
No,
Mr. Westcott you made the motion, right?
Correct. Westcott.
Mr. Westcott's first.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Roos, second.
Ms. Carew?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Mrs. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Stree?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
No.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
No.
5-3. All right, motion carries. That'll bring us to new business 1, update and clarification of the city policy concerning odor complaints.
We got that back
Mr.
on
Tripp.
Mayor, thank you. Just for the purpose of clarification, and so everyone will know, what is our current internal policy of handling and addressing odor complaints?
I believe we still have it at, when you get 5 complaints in one day, we go ahead and send out the nasal ranger crew, take readings, log those readings in case an opportunity comes up in the future where we could pursue some kind of enforcement action.
And so all the staff are aware of that, and the phones and everything, and are being addressed and answered and maintained?
Yep.
I just needed to clarify, so everybody could be on the same page.
I had some complaints last week about the smell.
Did they call them in? They have to be called in.
No, they just complained to me.
Okay, they just complained, so, and I don't even want to complain, but I get tired of calling in. I just feel like I'm pestering someone answering the
Wasting
phone.
your time.
So, but the old rules still stand. We need to continue to call.
For clarification, Mr. Smith, you had indicated that you would like to still have the readings from the nasal ranger,
I
correct?
thought we had stopped it, so I've been telling people I thought there were some inner workings that we weren't talking about going on.
Is that correct, Mr. Smith? You had indicated one time and you still prefer to have the,
Wait for somebody else to interject before no. That would be good if you're really considering any type of future action. If you're not, you don't want to consider any type of future civil litigation, then it's time to wrap it up. So if you want to keep your option open, then yes. If you're not going to follow through on it as a council, then I don't see the point in it.
What was the point of us ridding ourselves of the one little rule that we had against the odor? It's been a few months ago. I thought it was a plan that we eliminate that so that when our complaints with the state, who has a much stiffer penalty than we had, could take care of that for us.
I believe this was addressed.
Am I wrong there? I mean, did I misunderstand that?
I-
Because I thought that was the purpose of us getting rid of that.
Probably so. I believe, were you present when Mr. Gibbons came to the city council? He explained the difficulty in the state laws that is criminal in nature, and without the cooperation, which we have none, from ADEQ, they would harm any type of criminal prosecution under the state law. And therefore, he was very reluctant to do anything under the state law. The problem with our ordinance is ADEQ is not supportive in allowing, will not endorse a city in a court of law that it can regulate odor. However, at the same time, they will not do so on their own. So that's the predicament we're in with the state agency.
Any other discussion?
We discussed it all night.
All
We
right,
didn't get
item
nowhere.
2, consideration of a resolution setting a public hearing to close 5 feet of East M Street right-of-way. This is preparing for a rezoning action and will come up, I believe that goes to Planning Commission next week. Is that right, Mr. Garza? But we need to go ahead and set the,
Motion.
Second. Got a motion, Mr. Wiley, a second, Mr. Westcott. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that concludes tonight's agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
I believe that's it, isn't it, Mr. Smith? We talked about some late agenda items, but I think they've all been, is that ordinance?
Yeah, I think it's all tabled.
Was that taken off? Yes, that was going to be added as a late agenda item, but after internal discussion and talking with Mr. Smith, we think we should talk about that at Tuesday, the agenda prep. So we're
Can I
just,
ask one more question?
I mean, unless the council wants to go ahead and add it, but I think we'd be better served to do it, you know.
Is there some sort of rule or time limit on late agenda items?
Do what?
Well, it has to be voted on.
It
Is there
has,
some sort of rule or
it has to be voted in
Yeah, it has to be voted.
at the meeting.
That was
2/3.
eligible.
on late agenda?
No, majority.
Majority? Okay. Yeah, majority has to vote to add it at the end of an agenda.
I don't know, who knows?
All right, so we tabled.
motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, we are adjourned.
Pass the-
they changed those